Hey, so I'm making a video today, but it's not really going to be about gun stuff as much as about things going on in the world, Europe, that kind of thing, and occurrences we've been having here in the United States for last month or so, specifically. Um, there's been some power outages in North Carolina. This is an old story, and some in Oregon in the Northwest, and there's been like a guy caught, but he was like some lefty Antifa goon or something. I don't know. But it's only like one guy that's been caught. Now, a lot of people are surprised by this. I don't know why. This information's been out in the public. If you knew where to look, like 15 years ago, um, they speculated all you had to do was check out some like power station sites and you could disable the grid. So, as I work through shift at night and gives me a lot of time to think and listen to podcasts, and I'm piecing stuff together, stuff I already knew, stuff I'm listening to other people, and I think I'll just give my own 2 cents here. I may be wrong. Hopefully, I am, but um, hopefully, I am, but don't know. So, if you think about the gas stove problem that's going on right now with the administration currently in charge, they want to make everyone go to electric stoves. They want to make everyone go to electric cars. Um, the Internet of Things, Wi-Fi, everything. And believe me, I'm on Wi-Fi right now. I like the internet. It's great. You can do a lot of good stuff with it. You can also do a lot of bad stuff with it. It's a tool. It depends on who's using it and for what reason. Um, so what this is mostly speculation on my part. But I would say that we are being led to be far more reliant on the electrical grid. My cat's looking at me, little weirdo. And so we're being more reliant on the electrical grid. And if you've noticed, was the last year or year before, Texas had a big ice storm, took out the grid. Again, the recent power station attacks. There's a podcast, I can't remember who did it. It might have been Mike Adams, the Health Ranger. It's been a while. We interviewed someone that worked on the power grid. Large parts of the majority of it is just really old and outdated. It really hasn't changed much since probably the 50s or even before, with occasional updates, like say subdivisions or the suburbs or whatever. But for the most part, the grid's pretty antiquated. What this leads me to think about is that the grid is particularly vulnerable. And what does this have to do with gas stoves? Well, if you gave one to rely on the grid, you're putting more pressure on the grid. You're overwhelming it. If you think about the droughts out west, I've been to Hoover Dam once. I was like 14, and that thing was huge. But they're having droughts out there, and that leads to the imagine the turbines and everything working harder, rolling blackouts. This is news. This is nothing new. It's been documented on various newscasts and whatnot. And so the biggest problem we have, our biggest vulnerability, is the power grid. Now, with this administration pushing to be more reliant on the power grid, I will see that as they're wanting us to become more vulnerable. What does that do with anything, you ask? Well, we're supplying APCs and soon tanks and soon jets to Ukraine to fight the Russians. Whether you think the Russians are justified or not, it doesn't really matter. This is going to lead to a world war overtly. We're currently in a world war. It's fourth and fifth generation warfare. You can look that up. And so I use the analogy of it's like an onion, right? So it's got 5 layers. First generation's like throwing sticks and rocks at each other. The second one is like stone weapons, bows and arrows. Third generation's like the advancement into the Bronze Age and Iron Age and this kind of weapons. And then it leads up to uh, muskets, and modern warfare would be firearms. And that would be third generation, more or less, warfare. Then post World War II, we started developing fourth generation, which is intelligence and economic based warfare. And fifth generation was essentially, I'm trying to shorten this up, is tech and heavier influence on the economy and the battle for the mind, right? So on this onion, this onion degrades, right? So as the outer shell being the fifth generation, then the fourth, third, second one, all the way to the core. In warfare, in declared war, theoretically, the layers degrade. Fifth generation breaks down things that your opponent and you, especially if they're near peer, breaks down that fifth generation shell quicker. Then you're left with fourth generation, which breaks down also, which leads to third generation. The only thing that can break down third generation to second or first is if, like, all the cities are nuked and all the power plants are nuked and there's fallout everywhere and that whole nuclear winter thing, which for the most part it's overrated. It's unlikely to happen unless it's a ground burst where you're actually targeting nuclear power plants or something of that nature. So that's kind of what I see as happening. I think we're being led to put extra stress on the grid, so when shit does pop off, and I would imagine that would probably happen probably within 2 years. I think 2 years I'm being generous. So when that happens, it will. Your biggest red flag will be cyber systems attacks, financial, um, electrical in general. For instance, if you shut down the grid, okay, you have no access to fuel. It takes electricity to pump gas. It takes electricity to cool things, refrigerators, air conditioner units, heaters, all that thing. Everything's super dependent on the electrical system. If only we listened to Tesla and had free energy. Or we had used thorium for nuclear fusion and fission. But anyways, I think, I don't want to say this is a plan, but I think this is a strategy by invested interests for a top-down control structure of some kind, and that World War III, as terrifying as it is and sounds and will be, the even more worrisome part would be who will be left standing to rebuild, and what would that society look like? I think a lot of people assume it's going to be back to normal. That's absolutely not. That's a huge assumption to be making. My assumption is also huge to be making, but it's 50-50. Essentially, the goodish guys might win, and maybe things will slowly return to a near normal state. But I hope for the best, but expect the worst. So I imagine the restructuring of society would be something far worse. Maybe even a super technological revolution, as during wartime, medical and technology improves vastly due to the nature of warfare. I'm not like a rank corporation guy or a war college person. It's just I like history, and yeah, you have to look at it through both an emotional and a non-emotional lens, and just understand where we've come from. History is just different people with a less technology doing the same thing we do now. That's it. Everyone's pretty much always been the same. There's been different systems and different technologies. Aside from that, the usual human drama plays out. So that's that, and we're nothing special or new, and that would happen again if our society were to be beyond a point of repair or resuscitation. So I would say get out there, start camping, do your trails, do hiking, try to get in shape. You don't have to be like six-pack dude or super ripped. Be healthy. I've been trying, my feet are killing me. I have to get new running shoes, but I just made myself start running 2 miles on indoor track and 2 miles on a bike and 2 miles on elliptical every other day. And I still got a lot of work to do. I'm no super athlete or anything. You just have to do it. If you just choose to say just buy gear and guns and that kind of thing, and that's great. But if you're not, your body is gear too. You know, it's without you being healthy, that guns and gear is not going to do a fucking thing for you whatsoever. You might get lucky and pop off a few shots, but you don't have the you'll have the mental fogginess, and your body will be slow to react to outside circumstances beyond your control. So you're a detriment. So get into shape um, sooner than later, right? Um, that's important because you're going to need to be healthy for what's going to come. Um, so how I imagine it happening is, like, say, cyber attacks taking down the grid and whatnot. At the same time, banking will be affected, and the war may cover up the massive bank depression or cataclysm that would happen from something like that. I think here soon they're going to announce officially we're in a recession, so it's going to affect the markets. Now, imagine how much more the markets be affected if, say, I think there's 6 top banks in the world, like the biggest. So imagine, I don't know, half or less are taken down by cyber attacks. And then your local power station, and then that affects everything. It's just cascading events. Canadian Preppers did an awesome video talking about, I think, the 8 or 12 systems of failure from an event like that. And that's, man, absolutely watch that several times. So much to learn from that. Also, another thing that isn't talked about a whole lot is something called a 0 day. Now, a 0 day is the theory that our electronics, in particularly, whether military or civilian, are made overseas because we outsource things, leaving us vulnerable because foreign interests or powers, while making a profit, and profits is generally good. I have no problem with that. Free trade, in theory. Um, but what it does is unscrupulous, immoral, and strategic thinking people would put backdoors into your, say, circuit board, memory, whatever hardware you have, or even software. And at the onset of a global war, then these would be, I expect, activated. By how much? I don't know. So what you would see is like your computer go down, even though, say, the power grid's up. Um, Anything with a connecting signal would be affected. Military jets, tanks, that kind of thing. If it's not made in the U.S. and protected and made with domestic parts, they're more vulnerable. Look how much our equipment, militarily and civilian world, is made overseas and could completely be vulnerable. That's called a 0 day. There's a little movie about this, kind of independent movie. It's okay. It's not great, but it gives you a general idea. And so you could, just a cyber tax in 0 days, you could take down the whole society in 2 days, I would think. People would riot. People would be freaking out. Meth heads would be running around. Gangs would be starting up. You'd even have a possible theocratic fundamentalists like crazies, like snake handlers or whatever. Maybe start their own little redoubts and play Fallout. If you feel like video games, play Fallout. That's essentially where I'm kind of leaning towards. Um, so yeah, that's a bunch of stuff to worry about, right? It gets worse. Um, During an event like that, say the grid's down or is weakened or some majorly reduced capacity, um, I don't expect to see like a huge Russian or Chinese military or anything like that in the immediate future. That would be for later on. That would be under they're going to use propaganda, right? So it would be to rebuild the American homeland. And here's some food and power and whatnot. You just have to sign your name here. Take your chip or what have you, and here's your food, and we'll keep track of you. And then eventually they would rebuild society, and you'd probably be put in camps. So it's pretty fucking terrifying. Um, Before all that would happen, well, it was these cells popping off here in the United States. I don't know about the rest of the world. I assume it might be similar, maybe not. Um, to my European friends, I have no idea. You guys are way closer to the action. You guys have a lot more to lose um, as far as distance than we do. We have a little bit of buffer of the air and seas. I'm getting sidetracked here, but so what you would see here in the states would be cartels. Cartels are the most obvious people. They'd be popping off, doing political hits on whomever, maybe like police commissioners or judges or something like that, causing a lot of chaos. You got to remember these guys, especially the Mexican cartels, are largely backed by the Chinese Communist Party in South and Central America. So now that'll be a problem. Um, so you have to be on guard against that. Plus, you have embedded people from, like, say, Iran. And not all Iranians are bad, but definitely the Iranian government is not a good thing. And there's definitely some fundamentalists, and you think those are bad. I'm sure you have ISIS here. I'm sure you have Al Qaeda here. They're maybe in certain mosques. I don't think all. I think whatever religion you are, with maybe the exception of Satanism, are generally probably a pretty good person, and you don't want to see this kind of thing happen. However, we didn't get here on good wishes and hopes, so you have to expect the worst. So you have cartels, domestic jihadi groups popping off, other radicalized groups like Black Panther and the Klan, and those kind of morons, and all that shit's gonna pop up sporadically, and it'll be what is it? Order out of chaos and Hegelian dialectic. Look that up. That's a mind bender and blower. That's inappropriate, but yeah. So there's lots to unpack here. I'm trying to keep this short. I know it's like already like 16 minutes or whatever, and this is the shortened version of what I really want to say. So, what's the takeaway from this? The takeaway is prepare for the worst. Get your affairs in order. Get healthy. Get armed. Get your gear. Um, help out people that are worth out helping, right? Um, family and friends that are similar page, give it them, and maybe we might have a chance. Um, and you got to think one thing in particular that keeps popping in my mind is, Russia. They have like room for like a third of Moscow or a third of the population, one or the other, to fit like 30, 40 million people in their country in bunkers that are like furnished, have food, generators, air filtration, all that stuff. What do we have in the States? Basements. If you have a basement, you have a house with a basement. The people that were protected are going to be like the high top priority government official types, and the international moguls. Those guys, they have bunkers, like really really nice ones. At least in Davos right now, they have this Canadian paper also mentions that they have this very elaborate bunker system. Um, but the American people, we don't. In the 50s and 60s, we had bunkers where you go in buildings, Cold War shelters, bomb shelters. We don't have anything like that now. We have nothing like that. You're lucky if you have a basement, or you have to pay through the parking garage, or it depends if you're rural or city. Yeah, for all the Russianness, at least they have that down. The whole bunker thing. We've got nothing. We're totally vulnerable. We are much more vulnerable than what we should be. And this, I think, is set up because we're the biggest threat to a world hegemony. Our oligarchical, technocratic, plutocratic society full of nut jobs and psychopaths. And that's kind of calls the shots. They're really good at blending in. You want an example? Watch American Psycho. Imagine a bunch of Patrick Batemans running some of the top end systems of the world. Anyways, I've ranted long enough. I've been wanting to make this for a while. It's like a 19-minute video. If you stick through this, you did a really good job. That's it for now. If you like this, hit me up in the comments, and if you want more. If not, that's fine too. Also, on my videos, like or dislike them. I don't care if you dislike them. Hit the down button. Like them, hit up, etc., etc. Anyways, just try to have a good day, and hope for the best. Expect the worst. See ya.